Hello, everyone. This is Sean Smith, and you are tuned in to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. This podcast will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide. We will engage them in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience of your choice. So get your thinking caps on and your notepads ready, because here we go. Hello, everyone. This is Sean Smith, and you are tuned in to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. I've got a very special guest in the studio with me today, a good friend of mine. We've met, it's been a long time ago, but sitting across from me is Billy Dryden. Billy, say hello to the people.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
There's Billy. Well, Billy, I brought you in here because, one, you are a good friend of mine, and you are definitely an interesting individual in your pursuit of what you do. The biggest reason that I brought you in here, though, is that you've accomplished something that I think is pretty badass, in that you built your own bow, you built your own arrows, and you built your own broadhead, and you killed a deer with it. So that's the main reason you're kind of here today, but we're going to open up the mic to you here shortly, and you can just kind of let the people know who you are. And we'll walk through the whole process up until that successful day. So let's start it off like this. So Billy, you're new to the podcast, and I hope I have you back on here more often than not. But let the people know, who are you? Tell them who Billy Dryden is.
Well, Billy Dryden, I grew up in East Central Ohio. Come from a hunting family, but not a bow hunting family. We started out hunting small game. And then I got into deer hunting probably late teens, early 20s, and just absolutely fell in love with it and everything about it.
Yeah, you followed kind of the same path I did when it started off with a small game and moved on to white-tailed deer. They were kind of close to each other. I think about a year span before I got introduced to the white-tailed deer. Shotgun was where I started. White-tailed deer hunting, actually hunting in general, was with a shotgun. What about you? Same thing for you?
Yeah, small game, and then when I was probably about 16, I killed my first deer with a shotgun, and I killed a few more, and then transitioned into the bow. Had a couple great mentors that showed me how to actually set up a bow and how to shoot proficiently.
You know, that's interesting you say that, because those mentors, I've had mentors in my life as well. And I don't think people really value how important a mentor is to someone, and especially, or actually seeing yourself as a mentor to somebody and taking that opportunity to do that. Because I've had mentors in my life a little bit. I've talked a little bit in the introduction of the podcast itself that I was the only child to a single mother, so I didn't have a father around. So I had to rely on mentors to kind of get me in the direction that I went. So that's impressive. So when did you start bow hunting?
I would have probably been somewhere in my early 20s when I finally took the plunge, got a decent bow, and started putting the time and the effort in.
Okay. Yeah, you started about the same time I did. It was later, because it was later in my life. The first bow that I bought, I definitely was an adult, and I forget where I was working at, but the first bow I ever bought was a Clearwater whitetail. I bought it off of somebody. I don't know if you know Jeremy Fries from Newcomerstown. His name, we call him Biggie Fries. He used to work at Tilton. Do you know him?
Oh, I know Biggie. Yep. Heck of a cat fisherman.
Oh, yes, he is. And the reason we call him Biggie Fries, if you ever met him, you know why we call him Biggie Fries. So.
Oh, absolutely. He's a big man.
He is a big dude with a big heart. I've known Jeremy for years, and he's the one I bought my first bow off of. And it was old Clearwater whitetail, which is a compound. I had that pretty much through college until I started working at the city of Yerkesville, and I finally was making adult money, and I bought my first brand new bow from Northeast Outdoors. But that's a totally another story. That's not why we're here today. What was your first bow?
I had an old PSE that I shot fingers and instinctive, and I shot it really good till I got deer in front of me. Then I didn't shoot it so well. And then the first real good bow I bought was a Mission.
Okay, Mission. That's by Matthews, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So compound was where you started off then.
Yep.
Okay.
I've actually, believe it or not, never killed a deer with a crossbow. That's where most kids start, but Dad wasn't a big bow hunter. We hunted a lot of small game, a lot of rabbit and squirrel, and then I was kind of on my own till I found some friends that bow hunted, and they kind of showed me how to go about it, how to get your bow set up, and how, basically cut my learning curve in half.
Yeah, that's funny you say. I've never killed a deer with a crossbow either. My kids have. I started them off with the crossbow. But that's good. You have those early mentors there to kind of show you how to set up those bows early and get really started in that process, which is probably what led you into the direction you're taking today. It was from making your own traditional bow, which you're going to hear me say this a lot throughout the day. That's impressive as hell to me. Like you're the only person I know personally that has ever done something like that. So I'm like really impressed by that. So you started off in the compound world. How many deer you end up taking with the compound?
I don't know an exact number, but probably 6 to 10.
6 to 10?
Yeah.
So did you transition pretty quick to the trad bow then?
It probably took me 6 or 7 years, I would guess.
See, I can't bring myself to do it, right? There's something about shooting a compound bow that is absolutely magic to me, right? But the other part about it is I'm afraid that if I do try it, I'm going to fall in love with it and then start a whole nother rabbit hole that I have to explain to the wife later. So what inspired you to actually switch from the compound to the trad bow?
I guess just because the trad bow seemed simple and the compound was very technical. And at that point, when I switched, I was very good at setting them up, and I would shoot daily and on targets, not on a deer, but on targets. I mean, it was nothing to hold a group in a kill zone on a 3D target at 80 yards.
Yeah, and compound bows definitely, they have their technological advances over like a trad bow, right? I think where a trad bow shines, and Sammy was talking about this in one of our elk hunt talks. That he was in some really thick stuff and had a really quick opportunity to make a shot at an elk, right? And he said it was there and gone long before he could ever really get drawn, anchored, and then aim with the aiming system on the compound bow, the peep and the housing and all that, which I think is where the trad bow and the instinctive style shooter would really shine in that situation, where you got that small narrow window when I talk about window of time, right? Clear view of the vitals, he's coming, clear view. But I think that helps you in a situation. What are your thoughts? You're more of the trad shooter than I am, so you'll be able to get more light than I can on that. So
absolutely. I mean, you got to shoot with me down there at the R100. I think that was last year, and from the time my fingers go on the string until that string is out of my fingers and the shot's on its way, it's not very long, 5-6 seconds.
Yeah, I was with you watching you shoot, and number one, you're impressive to shoot. Watching you shoot the trad bow, I'm very envious of that as well, because I run into troubles with a sighted system, let alone trying to shoot instinctively, or which I don't know. Are you much of an instinctive shooter, or what's your style? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm a fully instinctive shooter.
Okay,
I don't gap. I don't look at the point of the arrow. And you'll have guys say that you see it, which I may see it in my subconscious, but I'm not looking at it.
Okay. How long did it take you to develop that?
It's been a process and still continues to be. It probably took me a good 7 or 8 years to really be proficient at it.
Well, it's very humbling that you said that, because it is a process, and I'm glad that, and I think that's important for people to understand. Like, what you guys have not seen of Billy, unless you've actually been on and watched our YouTube channel from the R100, is Billy was actually lobbing arrows with the trad bow at a 100-yard caribou. And he was definitely like the main attraction at the R100 for that caribou shot. Just even though like there wasn't any true impacts on the caribou, just how close that you got it is impressive. So And I know you're going to sit here and not think that it's impressive because you're a humble person. And I think that's an awesome show of your character. But truly, that was impressive because as the small group was gathering around us as you were doing that, it should show that that's pretty impressive. So you definitely have acquired that skill. And even with that skill, though, the fact that you'll sit and say that it's still a process and ongoing, I think is important to people understand is that you always have to practice. And one of the things that I've heard over time is that hard work will beat talent when talent doesn't work hard. So I'm a firm believer in that. There's a lot of examples of that out there. Not to get too preachy, but Tom Brady is an example of that, in my opinion. Tom Brady wasn't known to be the most athletic quarterback to ever exist. However, he put in a lot of hard work, and the next thing you know, he is the 7-time Super Bowl winner. So just keep in mind, that talent can get you so far, but you still have to put the hard work in. And Billy, it sounds like you're still putting that hard work in yourself. So that's impressive. So let me ask you this, comfortably speaking, what it would be. Now, I'm not talking about live animals. Like we'll dive back over that again here in a second, but what would you say is your comfortable range with your trad bow, just target shooting?
Typically anything inside 25 is pretty much, I'm going to hit it probably in the kill zone, most likely.
Okay. Which once again, I've seen him shoot further than that. And I know he can do it, but I've seen him do it at the R100. There's some pretty good shots with the trad bow that he was taking. And once again, it's pretty impressive. I know he's capable of, but I think that's a fair number to say about 25 yards is a pretty fair, an accurate statement there. So let's switch and talk about live animals for a second. Now, I know that there's a lot of different opinions in this, and I'm okay with that. Like, everyone has their opinion. You're entitled to it. You as a trad bow shooter and you're hunting, your ideal shot distance is what?
Ideal, I want them 12 to 15 yards. I can shoot them at 20, and if the conditions are right, I can shoot them closer, but you get them too close and your shot angle is bad.
Okay. When we say shot angle, you talking about from a tree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what if that was from the ground? Then would that be different for you?
Oh yeah, from the ground, I'd take them at 5 yards if I could get them.
I think we all would if we could,
Yeah.
right? We all see those videos of people having those bull elk screaming in their faces at like 3 paces from them, and they just waylay them with an arrow. I'm like, why can't I ever have something like that? But the problem is I'd probably still miss because I'd be sitting there shitting my pants with an elk that close to me, All right. So you say about 6 years into your archery career, which you said you started about in your 20s, you picked up the trad bow. Do you still shoot compound at all, or are you just strictly trad now?
I still own a compound, and I'll occasionally get it out and shoot it, but for the most part, I'm strictly a trad bow. I did shoot one last year in gun season with it at a friend's. He's got a bunch of doe and needed a couple going, so I went and shot one with a compound.
Nice. I almost had to feel like kissing your cousin, though.
Well, it was like a 25-yard shot, and when I squeezed that trigger, there was no doubt in my mind.
Well, that's a good feeling to have. That is definitely a good feeling to have. Is that you know that it's dead to rights. So, so was it enough to bring you back to the dark side of the compound world, or are you gonna stick to trad?
No, I'll stick with the trad bow.
Oh, come on, Billy.
I might shoot another one here in gun season, the late gun season with it.
Yeah, it's always good to break it out and try. And like I said, I don't have anything against trad shooters. I think you guys are freaking fantastic. I think it's just a big mental block for me. I don't know if I could. But I know myself, like if I do try it, I'll probably fall in love with it, and I'll be the next thing I'm spending all my time and efforts on, and might end up divorced. But anyways, all right. So trad bow shooter, we got your idea what your ideal shot is. So, what's your outside of the bow you've made, right? If you had a recommendation for someone, where would you send them to get their first bow? What would be a good first bow for somebody looking to get into trad shooting, in your opinion? So
there's a couple. There's a Samick Sage, and it runs about $140. And actually, one of my first trad bows was that bow, and I killed probably 4 or 5 deer with it. And then there's another brand called Galaxy Ember. it's a 60-inch recurve, and for $200, you can get a nice, really good shooting recurve.
Nice. So it'd be a good place to start for them, right?
Yeah.
Now poundage with a trad bow compared to a compound bow is a little bit different. Now the draw is what you're drawing is going to feel similar, but it's the holding weight afterwards, right? Because the compound will break over and then it'll juice, you'll have a little bit of let off depending upon what bow you have and what you have it set at. You get yourself an elite, you got 90% let off to where, you might be pulling 70, but you're only holding 7, pounds compared to when you draw a 40-pound trad bow, you're holding 40 pounds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I wish I would have thought about when I started, because, I'm fairly strong guy. I shot a 70-pound compound. Surely I can shoot a 60-pound longbow. Well, I could, but I couldn't shoot it very well. I wish I would have started with a lighter bow, got my form dialed in, and then increased draw weight later.
Yeah. So that is a good thing to think about too, because it's not the same, right? Because the Hercules that draws 80-pound compound bows, it's not saying they can't get to that position, because I think you're there now, right? But starting off, like it's a big difference there, because you are holding the entire weight of the bow. Now, let me ask you this: does the weight change depending on how far you draw the bow?
Yeah, so all the trad bows are rated at 28 inches. So if you're a guy that draws 30 inches, you're going to gain 2.5 to 3 pounds per inch over 28. So if you're at, say, 45 at 28 and you get a 30-inch draw, you're going to be 50 to 52 pounds.
Okay. Yeah, so for you long draw guys, keep that in mind. look for one that might be a little bit lighter than what you thought you needed. So excellent. So those are a good starting point. What bow did you end up selling on that you shot the longest?
An Ausenheimer. They were built in Bucyrus, Ohio. That's the bow. I probably shot that bow for 8 or 9 years now.
8 or 9 years?
Yep.
All right. So with that in mind, now we've talked a little bit about hunting, and we'll cycle back into that, obviously, with the trad bow. Do you shoot a lot of competitions?
I shoot a lot of 3Ds in the summer. I've got a buddy that's pretty big into it, and but not so much competitions as we just go shoot to shoot, and then it's always a friendly competition between us. But as far as going and trying to win shoots, not really.
Yeah, sometimes it's just nice to get the practice out there. I've not done a whole lot of competitions myself. I've been wanting to get involved in it, and I've actually been trying to work up the courage or the nerve to ask you to kind of join me on a competition where it's a partnership between a trad and a compound shooter. So one of these days we'll have to maybe start discussing maybe a formal partnership to go out and start shooting some of those. I like the idea of the competition though, just to add that little bit of level of stress to it. As you're shooting, to kind of help inoculate yourself to the stress, especially as a hunter. There's nothing that recreates that stress it's good stress. It's a great stress. But when you have that target animal, or just an animal in general walking in front of you that you're going to shoot, right? I think competition shooting adds a level of stress. It's not the same, but it is a good inoculation towards that to help you stay in control, or learn techniques and methods that help you stay in control while you're in that situation. So hopefully one day I'll be able to talk you and maybe join me, or maybe you'll talk me into joining you on one of these. So definitely look forward to that. So let's talk hunting. Was it last year? I think last year you shot a hammer last year, didn't you?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah. Do you ever get him scored yet?
I scored him unofficially at 142, and I forget 3/8, I think.
So he's big enough for Ohio Big Buck if you officially scored. So congratulations on that one. That was a hammer. I seen the pictures of him. That was a trad bow kill, right?
Yeah, it sure was.
All right. So tell us a little bit about that. Just as much detail as you want to go into, or you can be as brief as you want. Tell us about that hunt.
I killed that deer October 17th on a little on a piece of ground I have, and it's really weird how it sets up. There's a house. I'm facing up the hill. There's a house to the right, and then a logging road 10 yards to my left, and them deer are funneling off that hill, and there's scrapes on that logging road. And it was pretty early. It was, I think about 5, I had a deer coming down that logging road, and I had him at 20, 25 yards, and I could see it was a buck and a good one. And about that time, I felt that wind hit me in the neck. And that deer blew and went up over the hill. And I sat there and contemplated getting down, and the winds got better, and I stayed. And like about exactly an hour later, I could hear walking, and I was already standing. I had the bow in my hand, and same deal. I can see that deer in the deer I shot in the same place, and I'm looking through leaves. It's early in the season, and I can feel that wind's kind of funky, and that deer stops and locks up. And I thought, oh boy, same deal. He's gonna blow and go. And he made a step to the right, and then come right down the far edge of that logging road. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to stop this deer, because if he did get a little whiff, he's going to turn inside out. And he's only 10 yards. So I just picked a spot, drew, and shot him walking. And I watched the arrow disappear through him, and I knew it was a good shot. So we waited 45 minutes and started tracking, and I actually bumped that deer. So we backed out. Found him the next morning within another 150 yards, but I just totally amazed he went that far.
So where was the shot placement? Once you found him recovering, where was it at?
It was about, a quarter, about a third of the way up, and about 3 inches behind the shoulder.
Wow. He made that far, huh?
Somehow, I don't know how. He should have never made it out of that swamp he went down and laid in.
So what poundage are you shooting with that bow?
That bow is about 62, 63 at my draw.
Okay. And the next big question I want to ask here coming up is going to be about arrow weight. But so you got 62 pound, you're drawing about 62 pounds. Wow. Did you get full pass through on him?
Yeah, the arrow was in the dirt.
Wow. So you got 2 holes. That's amazing. So what is your arrow weight?
550 grains. I've got a 2016 aluminum with 200 up front.
200 up front?
Yeah.
All right. What's the broadhead?
Winslow Woodsman.
Okay. All right. Single bevel, double bevel?
3-blade.
3-blade. Ooh. He's jumping up to the 3-blade on the trad bow. Look out. That's cool. You hear a lot of good things about 3 blades, and that's a discussion I've been having with myself for a long time. I've shot mechanicals a lot with the compound bow, which I don't advise doing with a trad bow, by the way. Not enough kinetic energy. So I end up making a switch from the mechanicals to a fixed blade, and I did 3 blades there for a while. I shot I think at some time almost every bow hunter shoots the Mod Tech from G5 at some point in time, or some version of it. So I shot the Mod Tech, had really good success with it, but I get bored easily, I guess. I'm always tinkering with something else. And long story short, I ended up settling on the Iron Will single bevels right now. 150 grain broadhead. And to be honest with you, the reason why I chose that was that model was where it switched over to stainless steel ferrule, right? All the other ones had titanium, which is good. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with titanium, but I just wanted steel. I got away from aluminum. I hate aluminum on anything that's on an arrow, aluminum inserts, anything. I hate it because it bends way too easy, and I prefer steel. I'm not against titanium. I have shot a couple broadheads that were titanium. One of the big ones was the Rage Tripan, was a titanium ferrule. I did break one, by the way. I did break a ferrule on a deer before. So it's kind of what shied me away from titanium, aluminum, and to settle on stainless steel. So it adds a little bit of weight to the broadhead. And like I said, that's where that model starts, is 150 is when the steel kicks in on that broadhead. And I've had great success with that broadhead. I love it. Actually, all 3 deer I killed this year has been with the single bevel Iron Will, and none of them have gone farther than 60 yards. Even the 42-yard shot I took on the buck, he went 60 yards and piled up, and just was like a carpet of, like someone took a paint can and just dumped it out. A lot of that's shot placement. I understand that, but I don't think I'll be turning away from them. I've had a lot of good success with them. So you're a 3-blade guy. You've had some good success. You got your buck, scored him out to be a 142. I'd be kind of cool to see an official score for him to get you in the record books. Is he your biggest?
No, that's my biggest with a trad bow, but I killed a 162 gross with a compound. It was actually the first buck I ever killed with a compound.
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know if we can be friends anymore. You never told me that.
Yeah, luck.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? There is some luck that plays into it, but there's also some skill that plays into that as well. Because you got to be in the right place at the right time, but you also have to be able to make the shot at that time when it presents yourself. So, well, yeah. Well, I'm glad to know that your first deer with compound bow was almost good enough to go into the Boone and Crockett Club. So whatever. I don't know if we can be friends anymore after that, but well, that's awesome. So obviously you got a lot of heritage when it comes to hunting, bow hunting, and now you've been inspired to kind of take the next level, and that is you built your own bow, which I'm going to turn the floor over to you here in a minute, but I just wanted to say that I've kind of followed your process through your Instagram posts. You're not very active on Instagram, but you do have some good posts when you do post. And I kind of followed the process, and then I saw that you were building your own arrows and broadheads, and next thing I know, you killed a deer with it. And I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it again. I'm like it's probably one of the most badass things I've known a local bow hunter or a bow hunter I know to have done. So let's start that conversation. What inspired you to get into the business? Well, not necessarily the business, but what inspired you to build your own bow?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I just wanted to do it. And I got a friend that's got a shop with some tools, and I had built a few board bows and stuff, and we cut some hickory and dried it, and we started messing with it. And of course, the first one I built was, I didn't know what I was doing, so I put way too much thickness in my laminations, and it didn't survive. But he built a bow, and actually, he was the first one I know to kill one with a homemade bow. And then I've built a couple. They don't seem to stay together for me. This one, luckily, has. But I had one last year that I broke too. Luckily, this year it stayed together, and I was able to shoot a deer with it, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's more than really cool. It's super impressive. Yeah, everything's a trial and error. I'm a firm believer that there is no success without failure. Like you have to fail a couple times before you actually truly get success, right? I think that's where a lot of people mess up, is that they think they should be successful in their very first attempt, and when they're not, they get all like butt hurt and they quit. Folks, no one is successful. If there is, it's a very small percentage of people who are successful in their very first try. And this is a classic case in point. You've built at least 2 beforehand. Am I correct? Or is that, or?
We built a handful, but it just seems like mine never stay together for whatever reason. It's kind of heartbreaking when you got it on a tiller tree and you're pulling it, and then it just absolutely explodes.
Well, at least, how were you at least in a safe spot when it blew up on you?
Yeah, absolutely. We got a artillery tree set up with a rope, and I clip it into the string, and then I can stand back and pull it and watch how the limbs are bending.
Yeah, that's got to be a little bit of an art to that too, because you have to shave well, you can explain a little bit better than I can, because I've never really done. But what I'm seeing is you kind of have to shave those to work a certain way to make sure they're bending together. They have the equal weights, all that. So, kind of walk us through the process. From start to finish, how did you, and we can talk about the successful one, like the one you actually, showed me today, the one that you killed your deer with. Kind of walk us through that process. And if there's any trade secrets you don't want to share, I understand. But kind of just walk us through that process.
So the bow I built has got a bamboo back. The core is Osage and the belly is hickory. So we start out, we'll plane our bamboo so the back of it's flat. So when we glue to it, we don't have a big void in there. And then we will take our Osage, work it down to whatever it really depends how thick that is, depending on what weight bow we want to build. and then I taper that, and then I'll taper the belly, and then we'll glue it all together. I got a form I built so I can put reflex deflex in it. So the bow actually, it's not a straight limb long bow or a D style bow. It's actually got reflex deflex in it.
Okay. So the testing process, is there any like curing or anything you have to do? Because you say you have to laminate it. So how does that work?
So we'll take our laminations, get them all to our desired specs, and then we'll glue them up. So we'll put glue, put our lamination, put glue, put the top on. Then we actually clamp it down in this form and clamp it all along it. And when we clamp it, it'll pull that reflex deflex in it. You let it dry, then you take it out, and then you cut it to your shape, and then you have to tiller. And all you're doing is tillering is you're taking off wood off the stiff spots. So you put it on a tiller tree, see where it's stiff, and we got a little gadget that you slide along the limb, and it'll actually mark the stiff spots. It's actually pretty ingenious. I'm not sure the guy's name that come up with that, but he's pretty smart guy.
Well, cool. And then you just start removing wood where it's stiff at then.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I got to ask, what's your poundage on that one? What'd you end up with?
It was right at 60, but I'm sure being a wood laminate bow, it's probably settled. I'm probably 57, 58 now.
Right. And in Ohio, it has to be at least 40 to be legal.
Yeah.
Right? All right.
Yep.
And that's for compound or any bow at all. It has to pull at least 40 pounds. So, all right, cool. So you say it had a little bit of settling to go on there. What is, how long is it?
66 inches, knock to knock.
Knock to knock, 66 inches. So the big talk in the compound world right now, especially in the hunting world, is to get away from the smaller axle bows, the 29s, 28s, because the longer the axle, the more stable the bow is, right? Is that the same thing for a trad bow?
Yeah, absolutely. And the trad bow, you also got, so if you got a guy with a long draw and he tries to shoot a 56, 58 inch bow, he's going to get finger pinch and it's going to stack. So it's a little different than a compound, but I'm a firm believer in a longer bow is more stable and more forgiving.
Okay. And then is there an ideal, say like somebody is a 26 inch draw, is there an ideal I say axle to axle, but I probably should say knock to knock. Is there an ideal length for that?
Yeah, like 26, 27, you can be 58 to 60 inches. And then when you get like 28 to 29, 62 to 64.
Okay. And then, of course, it probably goes up from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody can shoot a 64. But the weird thing is different bows, some of them bows, you can take a 58-inch bow and draw it to 31 inches, and you don't get the stack that you would get with other bows. It really depends on who made it and how it's made.
All right. Well, I think that's in everything, though. Is everyone makes their bows just a little bit differently how things go, and that's when people start arguing Matthews, Hoyt, PSE, Elite, whatever they want to argue. Like, my bow's the best. It really comes down what your personal preferences are, and there may be some features that some may be a little bit better than others. I understand that, but generally speaking, I don't know today of the major manufacturers there to be a bad bow, right? I'm sure in the trad world it's the same. Like, of all the major manufacturers, there's no such thing as a bad bow. Especially once they hit market, it's just, what works for you and what is it that you're looking for? What's the feel you're looking for? What's the poundage? What's the draw length? What's that, everything that kind of goes into it. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. The cool thing about the trad bow compared to a compound is you can actually go meet the guy that's building your bow. Like, we went to ETAR this year. It's a big trad only shoot in Pennsylvania, and all the big manufacturers are there, everybody. And most of them are guys that are building these in a shop that's not that big. It's not big production runs, and you can actually go talk to the guy that's built your bow, which is really cool.
Yeah, that actually would be kind of interesting. And I don't know, is this something that you might be looking into doing in the future? Are you looking to become more commercial, or are you just sticking for as your hobby?
Oh, right now as a hobby, maybe down the road, but if I would get into that, it's going to be fiberglass back bows. You just got less chance of something bad happening with those.
Well, I might have to jump in line for a Billy Dryden bow if you if you start making them available to the public. I might want to like the serial number 001 or whatever it is you're going to go with. So we'll talk about that after the podcast is done, but or at some point in time, because I'm sure we'll still be friends after this is done. So I haven't beat you up too much.
No, it's not bad at all.
All right, so we talked a little bit about the bow. Arrows. What'd you go with arrow wise?
So I'm actually shooting a cedar arrow, and to be honest with you, I hate wood arrows. But if you're gonna do it and build your bow, you might as well go full circle. And a cedar arrow with self nock, so I literally cut the nock into the back of the arrow, and then I made a broadhead. I had cut them years ago on a 1075 tool steel, and I ground them, hardened them, and actually cut a slot in that arrow shaft, and then epoxied that in, and then wrapped it all with sinew off a deer's backstrap.
He's getting native on us. That's dude, that is very impressive. So you said you hate wood arrows. Why?
They're just a pain. They're not consistent. It just seems like you're fighting them all the time. And if I wasn't shooting that homemade broadhead, I wouldn't have been shooting a wood arrow.
I wouldn't have gone that route, he says. So what would be your arrow choice? Aluminum or carbon?
I actually much prefer aluminum.
Aluminum?
They have the tunability of aluminums, I think, far surpasses carbon.
Okay. And is that, now are you speaking for trad, or you think even for compound bow?
Mostly for trad, but even a compound, then you get a fairly heavy arrow without adding a ton of front weight to it.
Right. So, all right, heavy arrow, here we go. Heavy versus light. What are your opinions?
I mean, I've killed deer with both. I shot, last year I actually shot a deer with a left-handed recurve that was a buddy of mine's that passed away. And I just threw an arrow together with what I could pick up. And I was only shooting a 430 grain arrow. And I shot this. I didn't realize it was a shed buck, but it wouldn't have mattered with that bow. I just wanted to shoot any deer with it because he never got to. And I shot this shed buck at about 12 yards and still blew clean through. Now, I didn't hit any ribs, so that makes a big difference. But blew clear through with a 3-blade. And normally I would tell people, and that bow's only 42 pounds at my draw. And normally I'd tell people to shoot a 2-blade, but I got through there with that 3-blade, and that arrow was in the dirt.
How much that arrow weighed? Do you remember?
That arrow was 430 grains.
Okay, which is about this where I settled on a arrow for my compound bow years ago. Right, I'm up around 500 grains now with my arrows for the compound, but there is a difference between a compound and a trad bow, obviously, when we start talking weights, right? Because the compound bows are way more efficient and they hit higher speeds. So that's where your energy is coming from, is from the speed of the bow, compared to the trad bow, which, there is some speed that kind of goes into that, but, a lot of the energy is about how well it's transferred to the arrow. And since they're not as efficient as a compound bow, that heavier weight tends to favor the trad bow, right?
Yeah, you get a lot of benefits from it. You get better penetration out of a heavy arrow. And then you also get your bow's going to be quieter. And I would rather have a quieter bow than a super fast bow. But I think there's a middle ground there. Like 550 for me is pretty good. I know guys that are shooting 45-pound bows that are shooting 600 grain arrows. It seems a little excessive.
Yeah, and it really depends who you talk to. Like, and you can see them on the internet today. There's the two camps. There's the super light, and then there's the super heavy folks. And then you hear some other individuals that are, have their own podcasts, and they tend to be they agree with you about that middle ground. Find what that good middle ground is. And that's where I kind of found myself, was trying to hit that middle ground. Like, I didn't mean to hit 500 grains. That's just where I ended up at, right? I knew what I wanted. Like, basically, here's how I built the arrow. I started off with my broadhead, which is 150 grains, and I knew that was there. I needed a stainless steel insert. I'm not going with anything else. Stainless steel, which the arrow at the time, that meant it was a 60 grain insert, right? So I already had 210 grains up front on the compound bow, and then so I looked at an arrow because I was influenced by an influencer on YouTube. I went with the Victory. The Victory. It's not the VAP. The VAPs are the really teeny tiny ones. I went to the RIP TKOs. So the total arrow weight at 28.5 inches with 210 grains up front was right around 500 grains, maybe, you know, a 501, somewhere around there. Right. So that's where I ended up settling on, and it shot really well for me. So I just kept it. But, all right. So middle ground guy when it comes to arrow. So we've taken you from building your bow. The inspiration was why not to build, you know, you built your own bow. You've got your own arrows. You did tell me that the arrows were kind of bought. You didn't like go out and find a cedar tree and whittle it to make the arrow. Let me ask you this, and you're not, have you ever made your own arrow before? Like strictly like actually from start to finish, or?
I have on a bamboo.
Out of bamboo?
Yeah.
Is it more finicky to build an arrow, like to actually get an arrow to spine right, than it is to build the bow?
Yeah, I think it is. You really need a spine tester to go in and test them all, and then you could take a log at say 15 inches in diameter and cut it into squares, and then run it through a dowel maker, and maybe half of those would be the right spine range.
Okay. Now, when you say half of those, do some come out heavy? Do some come out light? Is it all over the place?
It's kind of all over the place. It can be a crapshoot.
So with carbon arrows, what my understanding what they do is they just shave the carbon down to actually get it to the spine that they need. Do you do the same thing for wood, or?
You can, but I typically don't. I just buy them already in the right spine range.
Okay. Well, I would say if you were going to make your own, is that what you would do?
Yeah, I would probably make them and then get a spine tester and just figure out which ones were right.
Right. And just accept that there's going to be a loss, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, there you go. All right, he's like, so I went ahead and just bought the arrow. So I didn't want to leave that caveat out there. Everyone's thinking that, man, you went out there and whittled a cedar tree. So
not yet.
He's like, it might be coming. All right. So, feathers, what'd you end up going with?
So I have some with actual turkey feathers that I cut and ground, but the one I killed the deer with was not. It was store-bought feathers. I was pretty much out of them, and I needed another head. So,
all right. So on your heads, I noticed you went with single bevel, right?
Single bevel, yeah.
Is there a reason for that, or just is that what the cool kids are doing?
I don't know. I grounded on there like 2 years ago when I ground the heads, and that's what I did.
He's like, that's what I did, and it worked. Now with your tool steel, is that stainless, or do you have to keep on top of those, keep them from rusting out on you?
No, it's high carbon tool steel, so you have to keep them. I'll take them, and actually all my broadheads, I'll hit on my jewel stick about once a week if I'm using them, and just make sure to keep them good and sharp.
All right, cool. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the hunt. So you got your bow you built, right? And also you bought the string too. Like the string wasn't, all right. So you got your bow, you got your arrows that you made, even using sinew from a deer to actually attach the broadhead to the arrow, which is badass, by the way. And you're set out, you're going to kill a deer. So walk us through that. How'd that go?
Well, I made a bunch of hunts and just couldn't get it done. And then a buddy of mine, he said, hey, let's go. Let's do a double set. He's like, I got this place. I don't really have any bucks moving through. He's like, let's go do a double set. All right, we'll go give it a go. And we get out there, and he's got a set of sticks on the tree, but no stand. So I got my lone wolf, and I get up there to hang it, and there's 3 deer coming across the field. So I get the stand hung, get in there, and he said, I don't think I'm going to be able to get up there. He's like, them deer are going to see me. So he actually sat at the bottom of the tree. And he actually got to film that. And them does work their way in. And the biggest one come in, and she was about 16 yards and just happens to turn her head and look back across the field. So now I've got her broadside, and she's not looking. Head up. And I picked a spot, drew my bow, and shot. And I knew the arrow was pretty good, but I thought it was a touch back further than it was. So she went across the field, and we lost sight of her, and so we're kind of excited, and we're sitting there, and then I see a buck. Actually, I didn't know what it was. A deer come out at like 300 yards on this field, and then I heard him. I thought, oh boy! And my buddy's like, "That's a good one. You need to shoot him. He's at the base of the tree." I said, "I don't have a tag." I said, "I just used my tag." So I actually dropped my phone to him, and he bought me a tag on the app. But that buck didn't come in. If he would have come in, that would have been unbelievable.
That would have been the icing on the cake. So absolutely. The recovery of the doe, how'd that go?
It went good. Actually, I was thoroughly impressed with that blood trail. That was the first one I had ever shot with a single bevel, and it was an easy trail. She went about 100 yards and died right in the edge of the woods.
So they say, and I've seen it myself, that single bevel will rotate as it's gone through the animal. Did you notice that at all?
I really didn't. Honestly, I didn't pay that much attention when I field dressed her.
Yeah, my only experience is that I look at where I shot, where my entry hole was, and then I'll go look at the other side where the exit hole was, and take a few degrees off here or there. I've almost seen about 90-degree rotation from entry to exit on the deer that I shot with the iron wheels with a 32-degree bevel put in it. So I was kind of curious on what you were getting with yours, because yours definitely follows that 3-to-1 ratio, maybe a little more than the 3-to-1. What I mean by that, they're long and they're skinny. So what is, do you know what the actual specs on yours are?
I think they're somewhere about probably 2 3/4 long and probably like 1.16 wide.
Yeah, because they are long and they're narrow. And you said you had a great blood trail with those, right?
Yeah, I was actually pretty amazed for a 2-blade. I had shot my first deer with a 2-blade Zwickey, and the blood trail wasn't even comparable.
Yeah. So what organs you end up hitting on that though?
Both lungs.
Both lungs?
Yeah.
Nice. And with a good blood trail. That's you hear a lot of people sit and complain about the blood trails that they get with a 2-blade, and you've had that experience. I've had that experience. Here's my experience though. Every deer I've shot with one has not gone very far. I tend to shoot a little bit further forward than I think other people do. Now more so than I have in the past. I'm gonna pat myself on the shoulder right now, but every deer I shot this year has been a heart shot. It's gone through the lungs, or it's either cut the top of the heart or it's gone through, and it's just been, they don't go anywhere. Half the times they don't even know they were hit. They don't even act like they were hit. Like they know something's up, but they don't run off like I've seen other deer do. Like they kind of trot off and that's it. What'd you notice? Did she with her?
She just kind of trotted off, and she, like you said, about didn't know she was hit. And actually I got a full pass through on that, and the arrow was in the dirt, which actually really surprised me. That arrow is like 528 grains, and it is not flying very fast.
Well, and also, to be honest with you, I think most of the stuff that we do today is overkill for a white-tailed deer, for the most part, unless you hit something really hard, like a shoulder or a leg bone or something. And sometimes ribs can be an issue too, depending upon what you're using. But I think a lot of stuff that we use is overkill, right? I know that 500 grains out of a 70-pound bow at 29.5-inch draw is a little bit overkill. I get that, right? And I think we could probably say the same, looking at some of the trad stuff out there. But at the end of the day, like, is it really overkill? Like, is there really such a thing as overkill? And I don't think there is when it comes to being an ethical hunter, right? I think the problem lies is when you start to skirt the low margin, right? Where you're starting to skirt that, where you're flirting with disaster at that point in time. So, well, that's awesome. So you said complete pass through in the dirt. That's a great feeling to get those 2 holes in there. So tell me, how did that feel? Like, honestly, as a human, that you're now sitting over or posing with a doe that you killed with a bow, arrow, and broadhead you made yourself. How do you feel?
Oh, it was an amazing feeling. And after I get back, I'm headed to Georgia next week. After I get back, I'm gonna try to shoot another doe with it.
He's like, I'm coming back in the saddle with it. And you're not a saddle hunter, are you?
No, I run a lone wolf hanging hunt.
That's what you said. You're a lone wolf guy. those are actually good stands. I had one. I sold one for really cheap to some guy. He ended up getting a great deal on that. I just need to
I
get
think it was a buddy of mine.
He probably was. I think you're the one hooking up. Like, how much is it? I said this. Like, hold on. You said it my way. Yeah, I just want to get out of my garage because I fell in love with saddle hunting and now I'm into that one, sticking with the saddle hunting. And that's the bee's knees. If you ever get a chance to try it, I really recommend it. Because getting down out of the tree that way is fantastically fast. And that was my big hang up with all this, taking my stuff in with me and climbing. I didn't care. Like that didn't bother me. It was at the end of the day when I was ready to go home, climbing down and taking each stick off the tree. It was just the process for me. Now I just rappel down and I'm done. Right. The hardest part I have is trying to get my tethered rope out of the tree. That can hang up a couple times, but a couple of good good firm poles and things I can get it out and be on my way. But definitely something to check out sometime. All right, so let's. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions, and it's not necessarily related to what we just got on talking about. It is about hunting and stuff. I'm gonna ask you, what is your most memorable hunt?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I know, right?
Oh boy, it would either be that last buck I shot there that I told you about, or the first buck I ever killed was that big one, and that was in November. It was November 19th, and I went out there. I was kind of dejected. I thought, oh, I'm not going to see anything, and it was magical that night. There was just a dusting of snow on the ground, and I seen 3 different shooters. One of them was the one I killed. But I had probably a 170 come through, and we were filming then, and I couldn't get him on camera, so I let him walk. And then I sat there and thought about that, and I thought, man, you are an idiot. You could have killed. And at that point, I mean, I hadn't seen a 170. I mean, the biggest deer, back then I'd have been happy with a 130 and thought I'd killed a monster. And I let that one walk and just kind of sitting there and thinking, man, you are an idiot. And then luckily, here come that big one, and he walked by at about 10 yards, and I was able to make just a fantastic shot on him, and I watched him fall, and that was unbelievable.
That's a great feeling when you can actually sit and see them fall and die. Because I've been on those blood trails that go nowhere, and that's a miserable feeling. And when you get those ones that are just dead right there, that's a great feeling. It's a lot of, like, I like the blood trail. I like that aspect. That's why I like bow hunting. Well, it's not the only reason I like bow hunting, but it is one of the aspects of bow hunting that, makes it special to me. But at the same time, like, I like knowing that the animal's right there, right? And I don't have to do that because, like I said, and I'm sure, I don't know if you've been on those blood trails like that before, where you just keep going and it just doesn't go anywhere and you never find that animal. Like, that is a miserable feeling. And eventually, and unfortunately, it happens to every bow hunter. And I don't care who you are. If you want to sit here and tell me that you've never had that experience, I'm going to rebuttal back as 1, you haven't hunted long enough, or 2, you're lying. Because it's going to happen at some point in time. And and most of the time it's no fault of yours. Like, you can do everything right, but it's an animal, and they have a voice when it comes to this, right? It doesn't go the way you thought it would. They move, they duck, something happened. It's the name of the game, right? Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and you have to accept that. And the worst thing to do is to beat yourself up over it. To the point that you don't go back. Like, you learn from it and move forward and get back in the saddle as soon as possible. So, all right. So that's your most memorable hunt. Let's talk about if there was nothing standing in your way from your dream hunt, like, not expenses, not timing, nothing. Like, it's going to happen. What is it?
It's got to be bighorn sheep.
Bighorn sheep, huh? Yeah. Do you have a state preference? Where you want to go, or
anywhere I can hunt them? I don't even care. I'd kill a ewe.
He's like, I've never been drawn to the sheep. A lot of guys, that seems to be the pinnacle hunt, because 1, they're hard to get tags for. And even if you have to have a lot of money, to pay for like a landowner tag or something, like, because it's a highly prized, tag, and there's not a whole lot of them. So yeah, that would be quite the adventure. You think you're up for it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's like, I will be if I get the opportunity. Do you put in for any of the draws for those? Some states are more like a lottery. I think you have just about as good a chance as anyone else to get into it. Um, Look into Nevada, I think. I mean, yeah, you could be, it's just like playing the lottery. You could never win, or you might win. You never know. To get involved in that. Um, because I've noticed in my own personal experience, once you've done one kind of hunt like that and you have everything you need, the only real expense you have is just going, right? Um, don't, you know, don't let that, don't think that the money's going to hold you back. And I understand it does hold some people back, but you don't have to go big outfitter. You can if you got the money you want to spend it. But all the out west hunts I've had have been, on our own. And the biggest expense is that initial purchase of everything that you think that you need. And I will also give a caveat, like what you think you need is not what you really need. Like there's a few things you could go without. But that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother podcast. So bighorn sheep, that is, yeah, that would be a cool hunt. I don't know if I'm physically ready for that type of hunt, because that's a lot of mountain climbing, man.
That it is for sure, but I think that's part of the allure where they live, and the fact that you pretty much nobody's going to get to hunt them unless you got to have money or you got to draw a tag. And even drawing a tag, you're looking. I think Wyoming's like $2,300 for a tag.
Yeah, they're not a cheap tag. Elk in Colorado is $790 something, I think, for a non-resident. They're not the most expensive. I think Wyoming is a little bit more than that. But it's a little bit more accessible there in Colorado. So that's a problem. You're going to pay money for it. And, with that also comes the expectation that, I'm not saying that $2,300 is not a lot of money, because it is a lot of money, especially for going on a hunt that you're not guaranteed to shoot something, right? Or to be successful, right? So if you go out there, you better be happy with this, just the experience itself, right? Because I'll tell you this, like you can spend just as much money going on some luxury vacation somewhere, but did it really mean that much to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And you're gonna have to go for the experience and hope that you have an opportunity at an animal, and you may not.
And I think if you're willing to put the work in, you'll have an opportunity. Most of it comes down to is that the individual does not want to put the actual work in. And I'm not saying I'm not that person, because we could have had an opportunity at elk this year in Colorado, but I knew what my limitations were, and I did not feel like diving down the mountain to climb up another mountain to have to drag, if we did shoot one, back across two mountains to get it out, right? I was like, I don't know if I can do that, right? So know your limitations and stuff and be physically ready for that. And that's my own fault for not, being at that level. But also I'm okay with my decisions. Like I'm not sitting here sulking about that, right? So yeah, if you're willing to put the work in to get where you need to be, it definitely increases your chances of opportunity. And like I said, if you go out there with the expectation of just having the experience and enjoying the experience, you'll have a lot better time than trying to put the pressure on yourself to kill an animal. So, what else you got going on? You said you got a big trip coming to Georgia. So, tell us what you doing down in Georgia?
We're going down. Me and a buddy are going down with the Professional Bow Hunter Society. We both belong to that, and they have a hunt on Blackbeard Island for deer and hogs.
Sweet. How many are you allowed to kill?
I believe we can kill 5 deer and unlimited hogs.
That's impressive. Definitely not an Ohio level hunt there. The southern states tend to be a little bit different than most others. Like they're like, here, buy a tag and you can kill like, I don't know, like 20. So
pretty much it's going to be kind of cool. We're going to take a boat out to the island. We'll be there for 4 days. You're just there. Unless there's an emergency, you're on the island for 4 days.
That's cool. So you've got you say you're going home to pack because you're leaving here real soon for that. So I'm not going to sit and tell you exactly when so that people can start casing your house, but you'll be leaving for that. That's awesome. Now, have you done like an adventure hunt like this before? Or
I've hunted Missouri and we turkey hunted in Georgia.
Georgia. So you guys, packed up, left state, and camped
Yeah.
out somewhere. Or did you guys stay in a hotel somewhere?
Missouri, we stayed in a hotel, and Missouri was the worst hunt. There was we went probably an hour outside of St. Louis, and I've never seen so many people in my life.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that. I'd be like trying to go 30 minutes outside Columbus and hopefully finding someplace someplace that isn't filled with people.
Yeah, that wasn't our brightest idea.
And hey, listen, it's live and learn and move forward with that. Hopefully, it didn't sell you too much on Missouri that you wouldn't be willing to go back and check it out, because I've heard there's a lot of good things in Missouri. I've not hunted Missouri. I've driven through it a couple times, and what I've noticed about Missouri is that it's like Ohio, pretty much. Topography, the scenery is kind of about the same. It's a Midwestern, high humidity, same type of topography that we have here. It's like I never left home. So
hopefully next year or the year after we'll be in Iowa. We've got, me and a buddy's got points. We've got 4 points there, but I think now, of course, that we got 4, I think you need 5 to draw.
yeah, that's another thing we're dealing with is point creep, and everything's going up because more and more people are getting involved. And the states are happy for that because that's more and more money they can make. But at the same time, it's making it harder for people to get the access or the opportunity to go out there. Iowa's one of those ones that they are strictly a draw. Like if you're a non-resident, and if somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure somebody will in the comments somewhere. But I think you need to draw Iowa. Ohio, it's over the counter. And I hate to say this, I really do, but I think Ohio might need to start thinking about looking at something like that, or some type of a limit on how many people we allow in to come into the state. That seems to be the going rate. And I hate to see access and opportunities disappear for people. But at the same time, you got to kind of look out for your residents too, because access right now, and I don't care where you're at, you can head out to those western states, and there's a lot of public land out in the western states. You come east here, not so much. You go down to Texas, it's like very minuscule amount of public land. Most of it's all owned by somebody. And so you either have to be willing to pay a lot of money to access land. And I see that happening here in Ohio. Like, a lot of permission spots are going to the wayside. And that's a scary feeling. That means people want to start paying more and more money to have access. And it's not the opportunity. We have plenty of opportunity here in the state, and there's plenty of opportunities in other states. The biggest thing that is threatening our heritage, our I'm not going to say sport, but our passion, our hobby, our pursuit is access. And when it goes away, there's going to be a big problem for all of us. So, because I'm blessed. I have two properties that I have permission to hunt, but tomorrow there's no guarantee. Like, tomorrow that could change, right? And that's very concerning to me as an individual who hunts. Now, there's public land opportunities. I get that. In Ohio, there is a decent amount of public land. Not a lot around here, because you start taking everyone who wants to hunt and put them all in a public place. There's not enough public ground to go around, right? So we're going to have to figure out something.
I think Ohio could probably surpass Iowa if it would change a few things. I think they need to probably go to a draw. And if you can move gun season back even one more week so them bucks aren't rutting, I think that would make a huge difference.
Yeah, I would, as a bow hunter, so anecdotally and kind of tongue in cheek, I don't really mean it. I kind of complain about gun season, but I'm going to be very honest when I say this. Like, I don't care what you choose to pursue. Like, I want you to chase the experience that you want to have, right? If you want to gun hunt, I'm okay with that, right? I'm not against you, right? I'm not saying we need to stand together to fight the evil non-hunters. That's not what I'm saying, but I want you to pursue what you want to pursue. Like, it's your experience that you're chasing, right? And like I said, tongue in cheek, I complain, and I could see moving the gun season back. What about baiting?
Honestly, and I mean, I've shot deer over bait, so I'm not going to stand here and tell you I haven't, but I wish we'd get rid of it. It's a fact of now, if you can spend more money than a neighbor, you're going to have the deer.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about that a little bit, kind of, because you came here to my place and tilled the ground up, and we did a food plot back here. And it was about half an acre, maybe. We tried a couple different things, more so because of my ignorance and my stubbornness to try certain things, and then I eventually just gave in and did what you told me to do. And I finally got that to grow, but I really didn't have a lot of deer activity in it. And you kind of made sense when you responded back. You said, "Hey, there's probably people that's got corn piles and stuff around you that's drawing the deer." So I you know, I do supplemental feed, quote unquote bait. And I will say this: I am yet to be 100% transparent. I'm yet to see a mature buck on a bait pile or at a feeder site during legal shooting hours in the area the areas that I hunt. Now, every now and again, I'll get one to show up on camera, right? But to actually see one, not so much, right? I get a lot of does. I get a lot of immature bucks. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence when it comes to that, but I can definitely see the argument for getting rid of baiting for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And the problem is it's here now. So even if they make it illegal, I don't know how you get rid of it. Michigan has the same thing. They got rid of it, and everybody still sells corn and apples.
Well, here, let me tell you this. Like, it's illegal to bait on public ground here in Ohio, right? Now, I'm sure somebody might hear this and they might get their feathers ruffled. A couple years ago, there's a couple gentlemen that drowned at Clendenning on a boat, and they were loaded down with about 500 pounds of corn on their boat, right? And they were going to public ground to dump it. So you're absolutely right. Like, even though it's illegal, it's going to happen, right? Listen, it's illegal to drink and drive. People still do it, right? It's illegal to do this. People still do it. It's still going to happen, right? I'm a very firm believer that locks are only for moral people, right? Because immoral people are just going to break the lock or find a way around it, right? You lock something up, it's for the moral people who won't mess with it. So it is what it is. And you're right. It's been here and it's going to be hard to get it to completely go away. So I guess we'll see what happens if the game commission goes that way. I don't know if they ever will, to be honest with you. I don't know if there's a big enough push for it. I really don't.
I'm sure it'd take a big CWD outbreak is the only thing that will do it. It is a big boost to the economy. Think about that. People are paying $8 for a bag of corn and they're buying, a couple 100 pounds at a time.
Right. It's $8. Where are you getting your corn at? You got a Royal King around here. It's at least 12.
Yeah. Now you got to buy it at the feed mill.
Yeah, there's a local guy here that sells it for about $8, and if you catch him at the right time, he'll have soybeans too. You can go get a 50-pound bag of soybeans, and they're a little bit more. Well, I guess it's based upon market price is what he's selling them for. It's Guspet down there off 36, right? Now that's a pretty cool operation he's got going on right there. Definitely on the honor system. I don't want to talk too much and inspire somebody to go down and do some stuff for his stuff, but it's kind of based on the honor system. It's pretty cool, right? But you go down there and, I don't know what his prices are this year. I know in the past it's been about that $8 for a 50-pound bag of corn and soybean, I think 50 pounds ran around $15 last time I bought some off him. He don't always have it. There's always corn, but every now and again there'll be soybean in there. And I'm sure, like I said, it's based upon whatever the market price is. It's what you're on a paying, when you go there. So, all right. I think we talked about some great things there, my man. Anything you'd like to say in closing? Any final thoughts of yours?
No, not that I can think of.
Yeah, and you get put on the spot. It's kind of hard to think of anything. You pretty much have been the driving force for the whole podcast. Well, Billy, I gotta say once again, I am very impressed with the fact that you have done the ultimate thing in my mind, that you built your own bow, your own arrows, your own broadheads. And not only that, you didn't just shoot a target with it, right? You actually took it out in the woods and was successful with it. And it sounds like you're ready to go back out again when you get back from Georgia, which I wish you all the luck. And hopefully when you do come back, you're able to put one through a really nice buck, so that add even more icing to that cake of that build. I'm super impressed with that. And I'm actually super impressed with what you've accomplished as a trad hunter. And I'm actually very thankful to have you as a friend. and have you close to me. I definitely want to get you out on a competition sometime as a partnership. Sometimes when we go shoot it, I finally got myself to where I can at least consistently shoot 300 on a 3D course. So I hope that you and I can get out sometime and challenge some people. Maybe talk you into traveling out of state and take on Aaron Snyder and his buddies and that best of the best. I don't know if we're ready for that level yet, but we'll have to discuss that. At the very least, I'd love to have you come out west with us sometime, maybe do an elk hunt or something with us. If we can get something put together. Now since I got an in out there to Colorado, that's kind of like my eye in the sky there. So I really do appreciate your time coming here and talking to us today. I'll leave it with this is if anybody wants to kind of follow the story of Billy Dryden and that, where can they find you at?
I should be Billy Dryden on Instagram. That's mostly where I post. I've got a Facebook, but I hardly ever post anything to it.
Yeah, same here. We got a Facebook, but I stay off of it. I do the Instagram and the YouTube, of course. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Billy Dryden here to talk to you all about building your own bow and having that experience that he wanted. Once again, folks, we hope that you guys stay safe out there as you chase the experience of your choice. With that being said, until the next one, God bless you guys, and we'll see you next time.